All right, she lost an election, and now she's projecting. Hillary Clinton went on The View this week, which immediately raises a serious question. What's the weight capacity for that stage? But you'll never guess what she talked about. Her love of gardening, the things she does to stay healthy, how much she adores catching and cooking stray kittens. Nah, it was Donald Trump, as expected. But it's like I always tell Taylor Swift, girl, you gotta move on. Seriously, Trump doesn't just live in Hillary's brain. He's built a 500-unit condo with in-unit laundry and a rooftop lounge.
When Greg Gutfeld sets his sights on a target, there are no survivors. And tonight, Hillary Clinton's carefully polished legacy is about to get torched. With razor-sharp wit and ruthless timing, Greg peels back the staged smiles and consultant-crafted sound bites to expose the real Hillary hiding behind the brand. From email scandals to foreign policy blunders, nothing escapes the crossfire. This isn't comedy for laughs. This is a political hit job disguised as entertainment. By the time Greg is done, there's no safe space, no spin room, and no comeback strong enough to patch the wreckage.
Half of registered voters said any Republican would be better than President Biden, prompting one woman to legally change her name to NE Republican. In Washington, D.C., the giant grocery chain has announced a ban on large bags. Great, now where will I shop? Complains one large bag.
Picture this. You roll out of bed, stretch, grab your overpriced Starbucks latte, and think to yourself, you know what the world needs right now? More life lessons from Hillary Clinton. Because nothing screams unity quite like a politician who's dodged scandals faster than a raccoon sprinting through a trash-strewn alley. Greg doesn't just sip his coffee. He spits it out laughing and then proceeds to dismantle Hillary's entire voice of wisdom act. One sarcastic punchline at a time.
Hillary Clinton argues Joe should be, quote, direct and forceful, end quote, against Trump in the CNN debate. Yeah, direct and forceful, just like the noose I put around Epstein's neck. If I did it.
If you're enjoying this roast, hit that subscribe button, because what Greg Gutfeld did next wasn't just demolition. It was a full-blown Category 5 roast. Imagine a wrecking ball slamming through fine china, delicate, loud, and impossible to ignore. Greg brought the fire, the spectacle, and the precision of a sniper with a late-night monologue. But don't get too comfortable. This race is just getting started, and Hillary Clinton hasn't even seen the worst of it yet.
Warning signals that you were gonna lose? Well, too bad you didn't bother to visit the states you ended up losing, you potato-shaped wine bag. But would he even be worse now?
I think that he'd be even worse now because he was somewhat restrained, believe it or not, in the first term by people who he hired because he thought they would go along with him. And
if political comebacks were a sport, Hillary Clinton would be the Michael Jordan of airballs. Every election cycle, like a bad TV reboot, she emerges from the mist wearing a freshly pressed pantsuit, armed with a recycled sense of moral superiority. It would almost feel poetic if the poetry were scribbled in Comic Sans by a committee of consultants who barely passed Ethics 101. Greg doesn't just roast the comeback. He roasts the audacity of never knowing when to quit.
And, they're going to try to ignore him for as long as they can because they're deathly afraid of him. And they're going to do to him what they did to me in the Democratic primary of 2020, which is pretend you don't exist. And then if people start noticing you, then they will try to smear and cancel and destroy him at all costs.
I remember what Hillary did to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and she's still standing.
Baseless smears that repeated over and over and over again by the propaganda media until people actually start to believe it, and it starts causing some real damage.
But on the bright...
Let's take a trip back to simpler times when private email servers hid in basements. Benghazi was just another dot on the map, and the delete button wasn't just a key. It was a lifestyle. Hillary's infamous 30,000 vanished emails get the full Greg Gutfeld treatment here, shredded, mocked, and served with a side of sarcasm. Because nothing builds public trust quite like hitting permanently delete faster than a teenager hiding text messages from their mom.
Asking Hillary what will happen if Trump is reelected, which is odd because Hillary's an expert on not getting elected. I wonder, does she think it would end our country as we know it?
I think it would be the end of our country as we know it. And I don't say that lightly. You know, I hated losing, and I especially hated losing to him because I had seen so many warning signals during the campaign.
Greg didn't hold back, not even for a second. His eyes lit up like someone just dropped a pack of Mentos into a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke. Only this time, the Diet Coke was Hillary's carefully manufactured legacy, and the Mentos were truth bombs coated in sarcasm. With every punchline, decades of Clinton PR unraveled like a cheap sweater. By the end, all that remained was a puddle of spin, ambition, and sour cream-flavored disappointment.
This is why lefties always get all the commencement addresses, and they love to spout their opinions on award shows because they know there's no journalist there that will ask them a question. And the reason why, and he's the perfect example, none of their opinions are actually real. They are all assigned.
Let's rewind to 2016, the plot twist that wrecked brunch plans across America. Hillary was destined to win. That was the script. Hollywood had the champagne chilling. The media had the headlines drafted. And even the ghost of FDR had his congratulatory tweet ready. But the voters? They collectively replied, yeah, no. And Hillary didn't exactly handle it with grace. For the next 5 years, she toured the country, pointing fingers at everyone. Russian hackers, James Comey, Macedonian meme makers, Wi-Fi routers, gluten, maybe even gravity itself. Meanwhile, Greg shredded every excuse, every recycled talking point, every lukewarm hot take. It wasn't just a roast. It was a 5-alarm fire on the compost heap of bad politics.
It's been in the Democratic Party's pocket since Hillary stopped having sex.
That's like decades.
Yeah. Losing the union endorsement is like P. Diddy running out of baby oil. There's a whole lot of friction ahead. When Teamsters polled their members about the Dems' new candidate, Cackle's McKnee pads.
And then, the Clinton Foundation. That shimmering nonprofit wrapped in a velvet curtain of secrecy. Charity? Transparency? Or just a family business disguised as philanthropy? Millions poured in, yet somehow the world looked exactly the same. Greg tore through the facade with glee, mocking the Wall Street speeches, the billionaire bedtime stories, and the diamond-studded teleprompters. The audience wasn't just laughing, they were crying. Not from sadness, but from realizing just how many skeletons could actually fit in one political closet.
The alleged creator of the plan was Julianne Smith, a Clinton policy advisor that the unclassified Durham report refers to as Foreign Policy Advisor 1. And this woman, look how happy she is. She's like, I got away with everything. I nailed it. And then Obama made me the liaison to NATO. I mean, not Obama, Biden. Like I continue to get employed by these people because all I do is sit around and do the illicit bidding of my Democrat power boss.
And then came Hillary's sudden rebrand as a truth teller, comedy gold. This is the same person who once claimed to be dead broke while owning more property than a monopoly board. Her relationship with the truth is about as natural as a vegan at a Texas barbecue. Awkward, tense, and completely out of place. Greg sliced through her self-proclaimed moral clarity like a hot knife through butter, exposing every staged, relatable moment. Drinking beer at a dive bar? Staged. Riding the subway? Staged. Breathing oxygen? Pending confirmation.
This one is wild. This is Hillary Clinton in like 2008, and Hillary Clinton saying some wild MAGA type shit.
Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone. If they...
She's a Republican.
If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes. And you have to try to learn English. And you have to wait in line.
You have to wait in line. You have to wait in line. It's
You
all
couldn't believe that.
illusion.
And then came the pièce de résistance, Greg mocking Hillary's uncanny ability to sink anything she touches. Back a candidate? They lose. Push a policy? It collapses. If Hillary endorsed gravity, we'd all be floating by noon. The Clinton playbook hasn't changed. Deny, deflect, and never, ever take responsibility. Watching her sell herself as the future of politics is like watching a VHS tape challenge TikTok. Painful, outdated, and unintentionally hilarious.
Hillary Clinton, of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate.
Greg didn't even break a sweat. The facts? Brutal. The sarcasm? Surgical. And Hillary? Nowhere to be found. But like every recurring villain in a political sitcom, she'll be back. Probably with another memoir titled, You Thought I Was Done. Spoiler alert, she wasn't. As long as Hillary keeps walking back into the spotlight with the grace of a malfunctioning Roomba, Greg will always be there, mic in hand, ready to torch the stage.
It doesn't mean that Hillary would have been a good choice either. She was a terrible choice. She's a corrupt politician, one of the most unlikable people that's ever run for office. They were trying to get people to be supporting her just because she's a woman. This is going to be her history. Women, ladies, I stand with her. So there's all these women that have this blind allegiance towards this career politician, completely full of shit. She's been full of shit forever.
She walks in wearing a perfectly staged blazer, drops a few lines laced with profound wisdom, and smiles like she just remembered where the skeletons are buried. Figuratively, probably. She talks about protecting democracy, but from her, it lands less like a rallying cry and more like a phishing email disguised as a TED Talk. Greg didn't just poke fun. He ripped the mask off, tossed it into the Hudson, and handed the audience binoculars to watch it drift away. Every polished rebrand Hillary tried, Greg burned it to ashes.
How dare she? She puts out this tweet, and it's a picture of her, a much younger Hillary, and the caption on the hat reads, "But her emails." And she writes in her tweet, "Bringing this back in light of recent news. Get a limited edition But Her Emails hat and support Onward Together groups working to strengthen our democracy." The nerve of this woman to have committed federal crimes and to have gotten off because James Comey didn't have the spine to bring it.
In the theater of politics, Hillary doesn't just spill the tea. She is the tea. Bitter, oversteeped, and impossible to ignore. She's the sequel nobody asked for, but the one America can't escape, haunting headlines like a political ghost who refuses to leave. Every rebrand, every comeback, every staged new beginning feels like a rerun of a show that should have been canceled seasons ago. And yet, we're still watching. Greg Gutfeld's roast didn't just land, it detonated. Because when it comes to Hillary Clinton, the scandals don't fade, the comebacks never end, and the roast practically writes itself.